The Colorado River is disappearing. Las Vegas and Phoenix, two of the fastest growing cities in America, are watching their primary water source shrink year by year, and the math is not looking good. Someone looked at that crisis and proposed a $16 billion fix, pump the Pacific Ocean into the Nevada desert and build an inland sea from scratch. The plan sounds audacious, but the water crisis is real enough that people are actually listening. The shrinking lifeline. Lake Mead is the largest reservoir in the United States. It holds water for roughly 25 million people across Nevada, Arizona, and California, and right now it is less than a quarter full. The Colorado River feeds it, but the Colorado has been over-allocated for over a century, promised to more states than it can actually supply. The original water sharing agreement was signed in 1922 during one of the wettest periods in recorded history. Engineers assumed that level of flow was normal. It wasn't. Climate change has since made an already fragile system worse, accelerating drought conditions across the entire Southwest. The federal government has already issued shortage declarations, triggering mandatory cuts to water delivery. Arizona absorbed the first and deepest reductions. Nevada took cuts too. And this isn't a temporary dry spell. Lake Powell, the other major Colorado reservoir, is facing the same trajectory. Both are dropping at a rate that has water managers genuinely alarmed. Las Vegas gets roughly 90% of its water from Lake Mead. Phoenix pulls the majority of its supply from the Colorado River system. These aren't small towns with backup options. They're major American cities with booming populations, and their primary water source is slowly running out. So when someone shows up with a $16 billion alternative, it tends to get attention. Desert desperate. This isn't the first time Nevada looked at its empty landscape and decided the answer was to import water from somewhere far away. It's actually happened over and over again, and it almost never ends well. Back in the 1960s, engineers proposed the North American Water and Power Alliance. The plan was to take water from rivers in Alaska and British Columbia, haul it across the Rocky Mountains, and send it down through 33 US states. The projected system length was 8,000 miles, roughly the distance from London to Beijing. The cost in today's money would run between $1 and $2 trillion. It never got built. Canada wasn't interested in giving up its rivers, environmental opposition mounted, and the whole thing collapsed under its own weight. There were other proposals too, trunk canals from the Columbia River, plans to pump the Mississippi westward. Every generation produced a new version of the same dream, import enough water to turn the desert into something else. Every generation watched it fail, but here's what those failures share. They were continental in scope, politically fragmented, and financially impossible for their era. The proposals that actually succeeded, like the Colorado River Aqueduct and the California State Water Project, worked because they had unified political backing, realistic engineering, and incremental construction over decades. Nevada has been first in line for every one of those dream projects, and every time the folder gets labeled maybe one day. So the real question is whether the Pacific Pipeline concept is something genuinely different or just the latest version of the same story. The $16 billion gamble. The concept starts on the California coastline. Massive desalination plants sit right on the shore, pulling in Pacific Ocean seawater and pushing it through a process called reverse osmosis. Membranes filter out the salt under pressure, and what comes out the other side is clean, usable fresh water. No magic, just engineering. Then comes the harder part, moving it inland. There are two proposed routes. The southern route threads water through existing canal infrastructure already moving water through the region, reducing the amount of brand new construction needed. The eastern route is more ambitious, running water through the Mojave Valley along the old, mostly dry riverbed of the Mojave River, climbing through the Amargosa Valley and emerging at Nevada's border. From there, the water spreads into dried ancient lake basins, places like Amargosa, Reese, Big Smoky, and Monitor Valleys. These aren't random locations. Millions of years ago, they held actual lakes. The land is literally shaped to hold water. The full system layers 500 miles of new canals on top of roughly 1,000 miles of natural drainage channels. The energy needed to run it is enormous, so the project leans heavily on solar power, and both California and Nevada happen to have some of the strongest solar capacity in the country. The total cost breakdown runs roughly $4 billion for solar panels, $4 billion for desalination desalination plants, $6 billion for canals and aqueducts, and $2 billion for pumping infrastructure. The result, if it ever gets built, would be up to 1,500 square miles of new water surface in one of the driest places on Earth. That's an inland sea larger than Rhode Island sitting in the middle of the Nevada desert. And here's a question worth dropping in the comments. Would you rather see Nevada go big with something like this, or double down on conservation and recycling programs that are already working, mining the waste? Every desalination plant has a problem nobody likes to talk about up front. For every ton of fresh water the process produces, it also generates roughly half a ton of leftover brine, thick, heavily concentrated salt water packed with everything the membranes pulled out. At industrial scale, that's an enormous amount of material that has to go somewhere. The Pacific Pipeline concept takes a different angle on it. Instead of treating the brine as a disposal problem, the project frames it as a liquid mine. That's not just clever branding. Seawater brine contains dissolved concentrations of lithium, magnesium, boron, and various rare earth elements. In some cases, the concentration of these minerals rivals what gets extracted from land-based deposits. And lithium specifically is one of the most sought-after materials on the planet right now, sitting at the center of the global push toward battery storage and electric vehicles. The proof of concept already exists. At California's Salton Sea, geothermal plants have been extracting lithium from underground brine for years. The process is real, it functions, and it produces a steady revenue stream. Kuwait ran similar experimental studies, pulling magnesium from reverse osmosis brine, and those came back successful too. The economic logic follows from there. A desalination plant running a mineral extraction operation alongside it stops looking purely like an expense. It starts generating offsetting revenue, softening the operational costs over time. Proponents argue that when you factor in newly irrigated farmland, lakefront real estate, and mineral extraction income, the long-term economic return stretches into the trillions. That's a bold claim, but the underlying mineral science isn't speculation. The desert's warning. Before anyone gets too comfortable with the vision of Nevada lakefronts and lithium revenues, there's a body of water about a few hours south that has something to say about all of this. In 1905, engineers were laying an irrigation canal from the Colorado River toward California's Imperial Valley. The river flooded, tore through an earthen dam, and rushed into a giant desert depression sitting far below sea level. For 2 years, nobody could stop it. By the time they did, a brand new lake had appeared on the map entirely by accident. They called it the Salton Sea. At first, it looked like a gift. Resorts opened. Marinas went up. By the 1950s, it was a booming tourist destination with beaches and fishing camps. But the sea had no outlet. Every drop that entered stayed forever. Agricultural runoff carrying pesticides, fertilizers, and salts poured in continuously. Evaporation pulled the water out, but left everything else behind. Salinity climbed year after year, eventually doubling the salt concentration of the ocean itself. The fish died. The smell of hydrogen sulfide carried for dozens of miles. Tourism collapsed. As water levels dropped further, the exposed lakebed released toxic dust into the air. Salt, pesticides, selenium, and heavy metals, producing poison dust storms that swept through surrounding communities. Childhood asthma rates spiked. Chronic respiratory disease became common. The state is now spending hundreds of millions of dollars just trying to keep the dust on the ground. The Salton Sea was an accident. Nevada's project would recreate those same conditions on purpose. Endorheic basins with no outlet, extreme evaporation, and rising salinity over time. The desert doesn't forget what you pour into it. A smarter trade. The water crisis underneath all of this is not theoretical. It is happening right now, and the Southwest needs real answers, not just compelling concepts. But there's an approach already gaining traction that doesn't require building an inland sea from scratch. It's called a water exchange, and the logic is surprisingly straightforward. If Southern California gains access to a new reliable source of fresh water, say from offshore desalination technology deployed along the Pacific coast, it can reduce how much it draws from the Colorado River. That reduction leaves more water sitting in Lake Mead and Lake Havasu. Arizona and Nevada then draw from that surplus without a single new interstate pipeline ever being built. Companies like Ocean Well are already developing this model. Their approach uses deep sea desalination farms positioned offshore, producing fresh water that feeds directly into Southern California's existing distribution network through agencies like the Metropolitan Water District. California gets a drought-resilient supply. Upstream states get relief on the Colorado. Colorado, everyone benefits without the ecological risks of flooding ancient desert basins. It's modular too. Infrastructure gets added incrementally as demand grows, avoiding the kind of massive upfront commitment that has historically killed ambitious water projects before they ever broke ground. Las Vegas is already showing what serious conservation looks like, reclaiming nearly every drop of water used indoors through aggressive recycling programs. Phoenix is pursuing similar efficiency measures. These aren't glamorous solutions, they don't generate billion-dollar headlines, but they are actually working. The West has always dreamed big when it comes to water. Sometimes that's exactly what the moment calls for. The real question is whether the boldest move right now is a $16 billion inland sea, or finally building the infrastructure of honesty around a crisis that has been decades in the making. The Colorado River isn't waiting for the perfect plan, and neither are the 25 million people who depend on it. Whether the answer ends up being a Pacific pipeline, a water exchange, or something nobody has proposed yet, the Southwest is going to have to choose, and choose soon. If you enjoyed this video, you'll love this next one.